I was sent a link to one of his videos back in 2008. He only had around 15,000 subscribers at the time. He was a lot less obviously crazy. He was making videos about being a vegetarian. It spoke to me for whatever reason. I signed up to the forum, and because he had quite a smaller following back then, it was a lot easier to talk to him if you wanted to. He would take part in the forum as a normal member. It seemed a lot closer than YouTube comments, let's say. Within the first year of using the forum, I became one of his moderators, and from 2008 to 2014, I was a moderator, if not a head moderator for him.
What was your responsibility as a head moderator there?
Well, he had very little involvement. Once the forum became more popular, he had very, very little involvement. So I was there to enforce the rules that he had wanted to enforce there.
I first joined, I was 13 years old, and it was initially because I'm trying to get Onision's attention, as are a lot of other people. People joining these forums, they're joining because they're Onision fans. They think, oh, I'll get Onision's attention, and if not, I will communicate with other Onision fans. And as everyone knows, Onision's fan base is mainly young people. It's mainly young teens. So I was right in that demographic. I spent from 2010 until 2016 being very, very active in this community. I was always someone, a bit of a loner in school and all that sort of thing. I had a few friends, but I didn't have that many friends. Me and many other people on these forums, this was our social life. We were growing up. This was our social life. These were our friends. We made friends on the internet because maybe we had weird interests or we just didn't get on very well with people at school or whatever. So you would have hundreds of people coming to these forums who are then making online friends or making internet friends. For me specifically, I spent 6-7 years where I was just on there all the time. I lived and breathed those forums. So I would get up, I would check the forums before I go to school. I would go to school, be thinking about what I wanted to say on the forums and talk to my friends about when I got back home. And then I'd come home from school and sit there the rest of the night till like 2 a.m., pretending I was sleeping so my mum wouldn't take my iPod or my iPad or whatever it would be at the time off of me, because I'd be on the forums very late at night talking to these friends I've made. For me, the forums were very, very influential in developing my sort of mentality and personality moving forward.
I was present on the forums for the majority of 2010 to 2012, I want to say. I was a chat moderator in the forums. The best way to describe it would be like a sub-forum. There was topics, and there was little topics under it, and I would moderate one of the little topics, as well as the chat.
Give me an example of one of the little topics.
Introductions, like introduce yourself. Mental health would be another topic.
What were some of these rules? Take me inside this world.
They started off pretty basic, where it was like, don't be like, no harassment, and the general just be a good person rules. But then the more controversies that occurred with his opinion videos and the more like pushback he got, he would kind of bring down these insane rules onto the forum to kind of show that he really lives by them. So like, he censored the word meat into shit. So anytime someone came along and just typed a post that happened to have meat into it, it would automatically turn the word into shit, and everybody was completely confused.
He was very distant from the forums. He would know, mainly he would just look at this contact Onision section, but every so often he would come onto the forums and bring down his authoritarian hammer and decide, well, today all meat eaters are banned because I'm a vegetarian, and if you're not, then you're a horrible person, and everyone would get banned. Or there was another time where he says, well, today there is no longer allowed to be any male moderators because I do not trust men. Or another day he'd come on and say, well, today you're not allowed to have this opinion. If you disagree with me, you're banned. So that sort of thing was quite common.
And what would go on in these forums?
Doxing, pedophilia.
I spent all this time from 13 to 18, 19 years old. And obviously that's a time when you're going through very formative teenage years. So you're very influenced by the things going around you, especially if there's adults or whatever who are engaging in certain activities or the people around you. So you suddenly become desensitized to a lot of things. So you see someone being doxed, and the first time you think, oh, well, this person's information was released, that's horrible. But by the time you've seen it 3 times, you start thinking, oh, well, it's actually not that bad. It happens all the time. What's the worst that could happen?
There would be grown men hitting on children. And when they're told, oh, this person's a child, there would be some instances of men saying, well, you don't know that.
So in these forums, there were adult men hitting on children.
Yes, and I was one of them.
And so you were hit on by other men who came to this forum knowing there would be underage girls there who might be vulnerable. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
I view the forums as a catalog for these undesirables. And adults would come on here. They would make friends with people who were underage. People 18 plus would be on there being friends with people much, much younger than them. And that was the norm. I would say maybe 75% of the active user base were under the age of 18 on these forums when I was there.
When did things start to bother you, start to alarm you in terms of what was going on in those forums?
So I could see private chats as well as the public chat. The main thing I saw there that's left a lasting effect is I saw someone in a private chat with a 14-year-old, and she admitted to being 14. This wasn't a case of a mistaken age. The chat there, he was, kind of love bombing her, kind of like how Greg does to his victims. He was asking her for nude pictures. She understandably didn't want to send them, and I remember I actually came across the logs. It wasn't just in one instance, across 3 different days he had been messaging her, and he was telling her, like, you need to trust me and all of this usual stuff. And I still remember the moment I saw her message in reply to him saying, I've sent them. And this wasn't on the site. They had obviously been in contact off the site, whatever way that was, I don't know. But that moment, like, I still remember the sinking feeling of thinking, it's too late now. There's nothing I can do about that other than ban that predator.
I had a relationship with someone who was 20, 21 years old when I was 15, 16 years old. And that went on, stretched around the course of a year. And that's something that at the time I viewed as very normal. I had seen other people in the community who had been involved with similar sort of arrangements. I had seen friends who had been 15 with someone who's 25, or I'd seen friends who had been 14 and someone's 20 or whatever. So when it happened with me, I just thought it was normal as well. And no one really said anything. It was back in 2013, and it's not been until the last couple of years I've actually realized maybe there was something going on there. I feel like in my head I've repressed a lot of experiences that I've had. I mean, that's just something I experienced. I've had lots of other, like, women, for example, who have had children, even, who, when I was 15, 16 years old on these forums, had said things like, you're the only person younger than me that I would have sex with. And that's a very bizarre statement, obviously, to make to someone so young when you're in your mid-20s, 30 years old. So from my experience and from friends that have told me in their sorts of relationships, it's very much romantic and sexual conversations, along with this solicitation of nude images as well, back and forth on both parties. That is kind of the thing that always happens in these situations. I mean, that's specific relationships. I can name countless examples of instances where people met others on the forums and it was just simply one picture exchange. There was no relationship. It was just a picture sent over or a picture sent back, and that was it. There's probably more of those than there were actual relationships that were formed.
The forums were traumatic. The forums were really traumatic. I was doxxed and my nudes were posted to a popular website for drama, as well as my phone number.
The worst instance I remember from the forums was the thing that happened to Regina. So it was 2012. I specifically remember it was near the end of 2012. And obviously I had met Regina on the Onision forums. There was a forum moderator, and he was a grown man, and he was speaking to Regina while Regina was underage, and he was well aware of that. Regina sent him nude images of herself, which he then, for whatever reason, passed on to someone else.
Gave my nude photo to a friend, who gave my nude photo to a friend, who gave my nude photo to someone who didn't like me.
So they said Regina was going to deserve what they were now doing. So what they did was they hacked into Regina's Facebook account, other social networks, went to 4chan, other message boards online, and posted these nude images all over the internet, including on Regina's Facebook page that had thousands of followers on it as well.
Posted that picture, posted my phone number, hacked my Facebook account, posted that picture, and just let people have at it on my end.
It's like being sexually assaulted.
Yeah.
And that's not even the worst part. I mean, that's obviously so horrible, but I think the worst part was the reaction to this, because the people involved were never ostracized from our community. The people involved were never banned from any website. The people involved remained part of these websites for years to come. Maybe a couple of people spoke out and said that was wrong, But a couple of months later, everyone was back to normal. It horrifies me to think that that actually happened and that I was friends with the people who did that as well. I mean, that's how bad things were. But I was, I don't know, 15 years old. And after a couple of years of being around this toxic community, I thought, okay, well, it's not the worst thing I've ever seen. Whereas now look back and it's like, I can't believe they did that or that I saw that happen.
They say the very same thing, that Greg was aware of this grooming, of this predatory behavior, but refused to do anything about what was going on in the forums.
Yeah, he didn't care. He didn't care about anything there. Over the years that I've had to interact with him while running his forums, you know, if there was any issues that occurred there, I would have to go to him because he was the owner. I didn't have full control of the forum. And it was so frustrating emailing him because you always felt like you were walking on eggshells with him, like you didn't know what would set him off, something could piss him off, or half the time he'd ignore anything after the first sentence. You know, he just didn't care.
So I would speak to him about the forum saying, oh, well, we've got this issue or we've got that issue, or here's a suggestion. We could improve the forums here. We could tighten up security there. That sort of thing. I found him to be very distant, didn't really respond very well. I could write him 3 paragraphs. He would respond saying, okay. I found it to be very hard to communicate with him. I got a very bad opinion of him trying to talk to him on email.
There was a time that I'd seen another chat where someone had admitted to watching child pornography in a private chat. They were talking to someone who was underage. They admitted that, and obviously I banned him straight away, but I emailed Greg and I said, there has to be a way we can take this further. And again, uninterested. And I remember, because it's not my jurisdiction, obviously I'm in Ireland, I remember looking up like resources for the FBI and sending them on to Greg, like, is there a way we can use this online reporting? And he was like, all we have is an IP. What can we do? Uninterested.
And basically there was this girl who was 14, maybe 15 years old. And there were 3 guys, all of whom over the age of 18. All 3 of them sent and or received nude images to this girl on Snapchat. One of them left the community afterwards after it was exposed that this happened. The other 2 just kind of stuck around, and that was it. These people were not ostracized. They were maybe given a hard time for a little bit. Maybe people still had it in the back of their heads, but they were still allowed to be around. And I think that's what's important to note there.
A known sexual offender had come onto the website. He had made this video thanking someone called Greg, and he had all of a sudden showed up on the forum, and we're thinking, why is this guy here and why is he talking about Greg? He came along, he wasn't welcome in my eyes, so like I banned him immediately, but I wanted more information from Greg. Like, is this guy actually associated with you? Because I'm not okay with that. And I'll never forget, like, I still have the email thread where I emailed Greg asking him, who is this guy? And he was so uninterested in even answering me, which makes no sense to me, because if anyone had ever asked me what's my association with a registered sex offender, you bet your ass I'm going to be telling you, like, I have nothing to do with them.
I was talking to a few men that knew I was underage that still proceeded to talk to me sexually outside the forums, but we knew each other from the forums.
But the whole nexus here is the forums that are connected to Kai and to Onision. Is that correct?
Yes, it was Onision's forums. It was called the Onision forums.
One very specific instance was with a guy who is a convicted child. You know what? Me and my friends discovered this guy lurking around on the websites. And this was when Onision had just created a brand new forum. So the last one had been shut down. This was, say, a few months later. And when that happened, this was when me and Erica were the only 2 moderators. But we hadn't been set up with the correct permissions on the website. So we didn't actually have the power to ban anyone. And we hadn't realized that. So immediately, I emailed Onision. I emailed him right away and I said, I did not have permissions to ban this guy. This guy is on your forums. I sent him a link to the guy's criminal record saying, here it is. Can you please give me the permissions to ban this guy? Because we need to get him off of there.
Did this forum become a spot for predators to try to groom some of Onision's underage fans?
Yeah, it had to have been. Here was a guy that was making videos that were appealing to increasingly younger audiences. Obviously, his fan base are young teenagers, and a lot of them are females. Why wouldn't you? If you were looking for easy targets, why would you skip over that website?
I think it's pretty obvious that the people who want Onision to notice them are going to be the younger people. I can't imagine a grown man or a grown woman who's almost 30 years old thinking, oh, you know what, I'm really excited to get a comment from Onision. I really want Onision to notice me.
Right.
That's something that preteens do. That's something that young girls or young boys tend to do. Like that's what I did. I was 13 years old. And that's the majority of what these posters were. They were very, very young people who would come on there to try and get Onision's attention.
It's so crazy because I think it was so normalized on the forum. It takes a while to step out of it and realize how messed up it is.
That's something that even if you start off doing the forums, you can always correct your behavior later and decide, okay, well, that didn't work out so well. There were clearly undesirable people on there. That was a toxic community. So let's not do that again. Yet
Right.
Onision would actually recreate his forums every 3 or 4 months. It would change its URL. It would go from onision.net to onision.co, and then it would go from onision.co to onision.com, and then it would go from onision.com back to onision.net. So these were constantly being remade. So you can't even use the excuse of, oh, Onision made the website and then forgot it existed or anything like that. He was actively creating a new forum every few months.
He was benefiting from it, right?
Well, yeah, he had ads and stuff on the website, so when people are clicking on there, he's going to get some ad revenue from people watching those ads and seeing those clicks on the pages and whatever. So yeah, he would be getting money from that. He also got video content. He had a contact Onision page where people could go on the forum and leave a message, and hopefully he would respond to it in a video. And in a video, he often did. So he also used it to try and get content for his YouTube channel.
Did this forum become a haven for predators, sex offenders, and adults who wanted to groom children?
Quite easily, yeah. And to be honest, I probably didn't know half of it. There's probably a lot more stories there that I was not aware of at all.
I guess that begs the question, if you saw all this, what was going on that you didn't see?
Yeah, exactly. I fear to know.
I mean, I've heard some individuals comment or make comments like, oh, we know that I've heard that that's the place these people go because they know that Onision has a young fan base, so they will specifically target that place. And I've known people as young as being 11 or 12 years old on these forums. The Onision forums harbored a very toxic community where things were normalized and people were desensitized from things. And for example, the relationship I had with someone older than me, the relationships my friends have had with people older than them, was something that was never demonized.
And then I slowly dropped off from there. But from what I'm gathering with all the research I've done, along with a very close friend of mine that was very prevalent on the forums as well, it continued even after I left.
I stopped being a moderator probably mid-2016 or something. And I think it was about the end of 2016, he started up another forum. I think it was onision.xyz. And this was a forum at this point, all of the regular users that I knew from the past left. What you had left was basically all these super Onision fangirls and fanboys who were very, very young and impressionable. Back in my day, back in the day of me and my friends, a lot of these actual really, really young people who are 11, 12, 13 years old, a lot of them we actually used to push away, but there weren't quite as many of them back in that day. So there weren't as many Onision fans. But by the time this onision.xyz site came along in 2016, 2017, so now these people would come in, all these young people, and they were basically allowed free reign. And this is when Onision says, okay, I'm not doing my contact Onision for advice anymore. Instead, I've got a new format on my Bro channel, which is where he reacts to images and things. So on here, instead of having contact Onision, he has submit images. So you go into this thing and it's submit your facial piercings, or submit a picture of your body to rate it 1 to 10. Rate your teeth, rate this. And people would go in and they would post a picture, and then Onision would react to these pictures in his videos. And sometimes that was rating a girl's body 1 to 10. And some of these girls were under the age of 18, and it was made clear on the forums. There was other posts on the forums where it was like, hey, post your age here. And the person would say, hi, I'm a 14-year-old girl named Susie, and I'm from this country. And then a few minutes later, she's in the Rate My Body thread posting a picture of her in a swimsuit, and then Onision's got that on his channel, rating the body. So there is something just really bizarre about that. I don't know how to actually explain how that makes me feel. There's just something about it that I just think, what? Like, why would you do that? I don't quite understand. I mean, he says that later on, he did add a thing that said 18 plus only. That was later on. That wasn't until people started criticizing him.
It was a place to hang out. So there was genuine friendships made there among the chaos. But like it's left a lasting effect. Like I have a 7-year-old son, and I won't upload video or pictures of him, even on my personal Facebook, purely due to that forum.
This experience had an impact on you.
Yeah. And, you know, seeing so much of the aftermath now, it's, you know, I feel in part guilty that there wasn't more that I could have done.
But do you think Greg had a responsibility to police these forums or to do something about this activity, or was this just a natural result of this ungoverned, almost ungovernable format?
He had a responsibility. His name was on it, and it was his website.